Greetings, friends. You're on the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we'll discuss the situation in Ukraine as of April 2nd, 2025. A tremendous number of events have occurred today, so let's get started. Before we begin, I'd like to sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps the channel grow. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. More and more often, we're receiving information from Kyiv, from representatives of the Ukrainian government, claiming that the Russian Federation is preparing a new offensive. The only difference is that various sources cite different timelines for this offensive. For example, Ukrainian President Zelensky says that the Russian side will launch a large-scale offensive by the end of April, involving a massive amount of personnel and equipment. Meanwhile, other Ukrainian officials report that the Russian army will be fully ready around the end of July. It's hard to know whom to believe, or whether the Russian army even plans to launch such a large-scale offensive at all. Alternatively, both Ukrainian sources could be telling the truth. Perhaps the Russian offensive will be divided into several stages. We're already seeing the first stage of the offensive, which is taking place along almost the entire line of contact. The Russian army is steadily improving its positions on the front lines, and by summer they may advance toward key settlements such as Konstantinovka, Orikhiv, and possibly even Kupiansk. Combat operations for these aforementioned settlements may begin in July-August. Now let's proceed step by step. We'll start with the Zaporizhzhia direction. There have been adjustments on the front line, as you can see. Today, a lot of very interesting information is coming from this area. Some Ukrainian military experts claim that the Russian side has concentrated a massive number of troops, tens of thousands of personnel and hundreds of pieces of equipment, near the Orikhiv sector. This entire force is reportedly awaiting orders for a possible offensive. As for April 2nd, 2025, there are also reports from the Zaporizhzhia region. Pro-Russian experts claim that a large concentration of Ukrainian armed forces units has been observed. New reinforcements are arriving, reserves are being deployed, and forces are gathering near Kamianske and Orikhiv. Soon the AFU may attempt a counterattack along the line of Shcherbaki, Mali Shcherbaki, Stepov and Lobkov to regain control of territories lost in February-March 2025. Today, objective control footage has emerged from the northern part of Lobkov, showing Russian soldiers capturing Ukrainian troops who had been hiding in a basement in one of the village's buildings. The Ukrainian soldiers surrendered, and this location was geolocated. Based on this footage, the map has been updated. Just yesterday, most of this village was in a grey zone or contested territory, but today there's no doubt that the clearing of this settlement is nearing completion. Additionally, increased artillery activity by Russian units has been reported near Kamianska. A large amount of objective control footage has been published, showing artillery strikes and FPV drone attacks on tree lines stretching from Zherebyanki toward the southeastern part of Kamianska. An offensive by the Russian army along these tree lines and strongpoints may be expected soon. As for Novoandriivka and Orikhiv, there has been no activity from the Russian side over the past 24 hours. An offensive may have taken place, but we've received no objective control footage or reports from any sources about Russian activity in this area. Next, we move to the South Donetsk sector. The main fighting here is taking place near the settlement of Uralske. More precisely, in the triangle between Uralske, Volny Pole and Shevchenko. Today, Ukrainian sources published objective control footage showing Russian units reaching another tree line and deploying troops. The soldiers are taking up defensive positions along the tree line, directly opposite the village of Shevchenko, and are being targeted by FPV drones and artillery strikes. This is where the troops landed, possibly preparing for a further push toward Shevchenko. Based on this footage, the map has been updated, effectively marking the previously contested area as under Russian control. At the same time, reports are coming in about fierce battles in Volny Pole and fire strikes on AFU positions in Shevchenko. Gradually, the Russian army is advancing toward both villages. There are also reports that the Russian army is currently advancing actively along the Mokry-Yaly River on both the western and eastern banks. Ukrainian sources indicate that the situation here is extremely difficult, making defense nearly impossible. Despite the lack of objective control footage from this sector for quite some time, we assume that active offensive operations are underway here as well. Next, we move to the Bohdanivka sector. Today, there are minor adjustments to the front line. Some pro-Russian and neutral cartographers note Russian advances west of the settlement of Constantinople. Recall that after the Russian army established full control over the village of Rozliv, this was confirmed yesterday with objective control footage and an official statement from the Russian Ministry of Defense. The AFU defenses in this area effectively collapsed. Ukrainian units began a mass retreat from both Constantinople and Rozliv toward the settlement of Bohdanivka. The Russian army, pursuing the retreating Ukrainian forces, has advanced significantly westward, effectively halving the distance to Bohdanivka. Fighting for this long-contested village has not yet begun, but we will likely see the first reports from this area in the near future. Moving slightly north to the Novopavlivka direction, there have been minor frontline adjustments. Following a successful offensive that began around March 27th, Russian forces managed to break through Ukrainian defensive lines and make significant gains. In the days leading up to April 2nd, Russian troops focused on clearing these territories, consolidating their positions, eliminating pockets of Ukrainian resistance, and securing the area. Today, additional map updates have appeared based on various geolocations and reports. Footage from the Ukrainian side, dated March 31st, shows further Russian advances toward Novopavlivka. The clips depict Russian equipment movements, troop deployments, and soldiers taking up positions. Some of the footage was geolocated near the village of Bohdanivka, while other segments were identified along the Serebryanka Gully. This suggests that Russian forces are gradually advancing toward Troitske. Pro-Ukrainian mapping service Deep State also confirms Russian movements toward both Troitske and Kotlyarivka, marking these areas as contested or grey zones. As of April 2nd, no definitive evidence had been published to confirm full control by either side. We can see that the Russian army is steadily reducing the distance to the regional border, and soon their forward units may cross into the Novopavlivka area. Next, we shift to the Pokrovsk direction, where Ukrainian forces continue attempts to cut off the salient between the settlements of Udakne, Kotlina, Uspanivka, and Pishchane. This remains a priority objective for the AFU. Today, the first objective control footage from Russian sources confirmed that Ukrainian units managed a minor penetration southeast of Kotlina, seizing several strongpoints. The clips show Russian FPV drone operators striking Ukrainian assault troops trying to consolidate their positions near the village. Some strikes were geolocated along a tree line, prompting minor map updates in favor of the AFU. Despite fierce Russian resistance, Ukrainian forces are gradually chipping away at this pocket, slowly reclaiming territory. We'll continue monitoring developments here. Finally, we turn to the Kostiantynivka sector, arguably the most active front line since early 2025. Significant adjustments have been made to the map here, with the most notable updates coming from the Tarasivka area. In this area, Ukrainian forces are putting up fierce resistance. However, despite their efforts and losses, the defenses of the armed forces of the Russian Federation are gradually breaking through Ukrainian positions and advancing toward the northern outskirts of the settlement. The footage shows a Russian soldier throwing explosives into a small building that served as a temporary Ukrainian military staging point, destroying it. The video also captures numerous FPV drone strikes, artillery bombardments, and other combat episodes, including the moment the Russian soldier tossed explosives onto Ukrainian positions. Based on this footage, half of the village of Tarasivka, along with surrounding fields and tree lines, has been marked as under Russian control. This indicates that Ukrainian defenses are being steadily pushed back, with Russian forces now holding roughly 50% of Tarasivka. Additionally, multiple geolocated FPV drone strikes have been reported in Tarasivka's northern and central sectors, further confirming Russia's incremental advance and the gradual expulsion of Ukrainian troops from the area. Strategic importance of Tarasivka. The village is critical because, just north of it, lies a reservoir and a series of natural water barriers. These features serve as a natural defensive shield, allowing Russian forces to consolidate their positions, secure their flanks, and prepare for further advances into nearby settlements like Zarya, Stara Mykolaiivka, Soroshine, Panteleimonivka, Alexandropil, Kalinove, and others. Updates on the Alexandropil sector. Russian sources have released objective control footage confirming the complete clearing of Alexandropil. The final clip shows a Russian soldier waving the national flag in the village center, prompting its full designation as under Russian control. Recall that in late March, Russian forces launched a counter-offensive from Urivka, swiftly capturing Panteleimonivka within 2 days. This left Ukrainian troops in Alexandropil and Rozivka encircled. Since then, Russian forces have focused on securing the area, and as of April 2nd, Alexandropil is fully under their control. After a brief regrouping period, Russian forces are expected to push toward Valentinivka, Kalinove, and Stara Mykolaivka, effectively cutting off the Ukrainian salient between Leonidivka and Zelene Pole. This aligns with the first wave of offensives that Zelensky has been warning about. Chasiv Yar, Ukrainian counter-offensive stalls. On the Kostiantynivka-Chasiv Yar axis, Ukrainian forces continue attempts to counterattack along the entire front line, from northern Chasiv Yar to Stupochki and southern Chasiv Yar. Despite deploying significant personnel and equipment, they've made no meaningful progress. Russian troops remain entrenched, repelling Ukrainian assaults with artillery and drone strikes. Ukrainian forces are suffering heavy losses without gaining ground, as Russian defenses here have solidified into a near-impenetrable barrier. Lyman direction, Russia prepares a major strike. The Institute for the Study of War, ISW, a US-affiliated analytical group, published a noteworthy report on this sector. According to their findings, Russia is massing tens of thousands of troops near southern Kupiansk, preparing for a major offensive toward Lyman and Borova. Ukrainian soldiers on the ground report that Russian forces outnumber them 10-1 in this area. The exact axis of attack remains unclear, whether Russia will push toward the Oskil River to envelop Borova from the south, or directly toward Lyman, or both. Meanwhile, minor frontline adjustments have been observed between Nov and Novolyubivka, with Russian forces gaining ground in field positions and forested areas. Pro-Russian sources also report ongoing consolidation around Yampil, suggesting an assault on the village may begin soon. North Kupiansk, slow but steady Russian advances. Neutral cartographers confirm incremental Russian progress toward Kondrashivka, northwest of Kupiansk. Over the past 3 days, multiple sources have verified Russian footholds in the village's northeastern sector, though no major frontline shifts have occurred, indicating heavy grinding combat with no clear breakthroughs yet. Northern Front, Belgorod and Sumy directions. Demidivka, Belgorod axis. New Russian objective control footage shows strikes on Ukrainian positions in Demidivka, confirming continued Ukrainian presence there. Further north, Russian forces blew up a dam on the Udava River, reportedly to disrupt Ukrainian troop movements across the border. Sumy sector. No significant changes occurred over the past day, except for a minor adjustment near Huyeve. Russian footage shows Ukrainian soldiers moving along Sovetskaya Street in the heavily damaged village, suggesting that despite claims of full Russian control, 60 to 70% of Huyeve may still be held by Ukrainian forces. That's all for now, friends. Stay tuned for further updates, subscribe to the channel, and keep in touch with us for the latest frontline developments.